Welcome to the Sensitive Warrior, where feeling everything is your superpower. Join me as we dive into an exciting and uplifting podcast that celebrates the unique strengths of highly sensitive people. I am Doreen Lang, host, and I am author of Embracing Venus, Achieve a Life Lit Up for Highly Sensitive People. And here's my book for viewing reference. And I'm also a coach I'm committed to helping highly sensitive people thrive. I'm very excited today to welcome a guest. This is Stacey Peloquin. She is a wife, a full-time professional, a mother of 2 adult children, and she worked with me in my Embracing Venus program. And I learned some really interesting things about Stacey, and she was so kind to take time out of her workday to come and talk with us today. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
So thanks for making the time to come in, and I know we're going to kind of talk about, hopefully, which is going to be so relevant for people, and that is the workplace, right? No matter where we work, there's going to be people, and there's going to be different people, right? And we can't always pick those people, and even sometimes when we pick those people, we hire them, they turn out to be a little different than we planned on. But it's about working with them or managing ourselves. But before we do that, I want to go back to when we met, and you had talked to me about, you went through kind of a time in your life where you realized that you were feeling some different things that were either uncomfortable, overwhelming, or very curious. It was more or less an awakening of sorts, right? So can you kind of take us back to that?
Sure. Well, I think growing up, I always knew that I had an intensity, or I would explain it as I thought I was high strung, or high maintenance, or wrapped a little too tight, or I needed everything just so for my own comfort, which you can accommodate that in a lot of situations, in your personal life, but in your professional life, it's a different story. You can't pick and choose who and when and where. And so I just knew I had some situations come up in my personal life that were affecting me more deeply than I felt like they should, or more than they would an average person. And I started to realize, by talking to people that were close to me, that they really didn't understand where I was coming from. They understood, oh yeah, we always noticed that, chaos would bother you more than the average person, or I would try to control situations, or less control situations than keep things under control for my own comfort. And it wasn't really until I went to a talk that you had. I was brought to Blossom Healing, I think, for an open house type event, and then I was interested and went to a talk that you had at a library, and there was a checklist, and there were other people that were all nodding in agreement. Oh, I'm like that too. Oh, that happens to me too. And, and being with other people that feel that way
turns lights on, right?
Yeah, it's amazing, because you really do sometimes feel like you're an alien, even in your own family. You wonder why other people aren't as self-aware as you. On the other hand, sometimes you wish that you weren't as self-aware as you are.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's
I think
really
that people like us apologize a lot for the way that we are, and and it's not easy. You spend a lot of your day trying to just manage situations.
Right.
And it takes the joy out of some days when that's all that you're doing is managing your work day, managing your home afternoon. It's not easy.
No, it isn't. It's so interesting, though, what you just said. It sounds like painful, right? Being a highly sensitive person feels painful, because the symptoms are difficult. And I know we'll fast forward later, but it's so interesting how that feels wrong and something's not right, and you have to look into it, and you're exploring instead of saying, cool, or this is so interesting, or because the symptoms really feel so heavy and so overwhelming.
Right.
Which we can learn is just, you're just so gosh darn special, but you don't know it until you really get clarity around it.
And I think a lot of it is that you're misunderstood, and nobody likes that feeling.
No.
And most special people are misunderstood.
Right.
And so once you put people around you that can understand,
Yeah.
it's like I am lucky in my workplace that I work with one other person that's like that.
That's like that.
So she can understand
She
that.
gets
And
you.
even though we're both like that, I might not understand one thing that she's sensitive to and something else, you know, it
interesting,
varies,
right?
you know.
Making even relationships and marriages can be tricky because they can get you and understand you, but then you feel this way and they're thinking, how can you feel that way? And you want to say, remember me? I'm an HSP. This is kind of how it goes.
Right.
And they care enough, but it's that
Right.
challenging to work and be with.
Until you know what it is, you do look like that high maintenance person. You do look like that impatient person. Until you explain, this is a real
true.
thing. This is a real thing that I am just built differently. And it's not such a bad thing. In some ways, to me, this is me speaking to someone else saying it's not such a bad thing. To me, I finally realize it's such a good thing.
Yeah.
And it makes you who you are, and it makes you the parent that you are, and it makes you the friend that you are. But it can also make you the difficult person to work with. There's good and bad in anything.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough. I have a very supportive husband who understands. And he will now maybe send a text differently than he would have before, knowing how I perceive
receive it.
things,
Yep.
how I, what he used to call overthinking. It's really not with a sensitive person. That's
Right.
just our automatic way of thinking.
So if you were to give us just like a little story, an example, to be specific for people, because you certainly talked in really like very clear generalities, but so people can kind of identify maybe with something that what comes to mind when you talk about this that really was maybe a challenging point where you thought you really almost isolated, right? But then you realized, or maybe you changed the way you were because you realized that you were drawing these people in.
Right, drawing in like a negative, like a
Or-
vampire.
yeah.
That is a good question. I guess each day in preparation for the day, I approach it maybe more proactively than some people. So I have to say to myself, if this particular person is going to enter into my energy
Yeah.
and things are going to go good, then I'm okay. And then it's like, well, that's, so you start with the positive that, okay, everything's going to go smooth, but what's your backup plan if it doesn't? It's making that bubble. It's making sure you're at in the coffee room when all the craziness starts. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra work. So your work day is already work, but then preparing for the what ifs.
Right. And a controlling person has that negative connotation, obviously, right? You want to relax and enjoy and go with the flow. But as an HSP, controlling your environment is pretty critical, right?
Right.
Because you don't want to walk into a situation if you don't have to, because
Right.
that's just going to be just too much, right? So I remember working in business where I could, this gentleman walked by he was a chef in the building, and he walked by my office, and he was all upset, and he walked into the accountant's office, and he slammed the door. My office, I was sitting out in an open area at the time, because I was filling in for my boss, and I was sitting out there, and he slammed the door, and he didn't even look at me, and he just slammed it, and it felt like he was slamming it on me. He wasn't. He was upset. But I remember thinking, I was going to hear voices through the wall, and I just found myself. I just thought, I'm going to go grab some tea, even though it wasn't about me. I wasn't in the room with them.
Right.
I wanted to get out of that general area because I did not want to get caught up in that drama.
Right.
It's the energy that was just going to upset me and distract me, and quite frankly, I didn't like it.
Right.
And I didn't like it. And I think a lot of us, and see if you agree with me, and I think you have in the past, I think we've had a lot of laughs about it, is highly sensitive people, we aren't crazy about small talk
No.
at all. It's painful to kind of
Right.
talk about nothing, and it sounds like you're rude, right?
Right. Or even being in the presence of it. So, life is very different when you're in an office than when you're in a cubicle. So I live in a cubicle right now. So it's not just the small talk that you're involved in. It's the constant flow of that small talk all day long. different people, maybe the same story 18 times.
If I hear about the weather one more time, right?
Right. And it's,
I know, it's
and then
really-
you really look like you're on another extreme, because then someone will say, oh, did you see this or that on the news? And it's actually something that you did or you didn't, but the news broadcast was enough for me. Sometimes even their small talk is just too much for me, and I'll listen to AM radio and get just the news and none of the, silly quips and,
So true. You just remind me of me, and I know this is so awful, and I'm really going to embarrass myself here, but what the heck. I'm walking down the street the other day, and a woman was walking up, and I know she loves to talk, and she lives at the house behind me, and there's a bunch of bushes on the right. I went right in the bushes, and there's a path to lead down to another area, and it's not a great path. It's, there's all sorts of debris and whatever. It's kind of a funky location. But I took the path of least resistance from me, because I just didn't.
Right.
She's very nice. She's a sweetheart.
Right.
But I just didn't want to stop for 25 minutes and talk about
Right.
nothing. And I know there are a lot of people like that. But I think for HSPs, we crawl out of our skin.
It's physically painful.
Yeah.
It is physically painful. And you want to almost be blunt.
Yeah.
Like, if you could only be as perceptive as I feel like I am with people's emotions, you know that this face is, please don't talk to me.
Yeah, please don't talk to me. I know, imagine saying that.
And I like to talk,
Yeah.
but I like for it to be, have some substance.
Yeah. If
to
it isn't meaningful, it really isn't.
The most painful thing is when I'll have a small talk conversation with somebody and then I have to rehear it to somebody else word for word the same way. And now I'm a small talk expert, because I was, I say to myself, well, could you at least switch it up the second time? So if I have to hear this again.
It's even worse.
Right.
So as far as in the workplace goes, how do you manage yourself so that you can feel comfortable in your skin, in that environment? And look, at no job is perfect, and no one is perfect, but it's still about comfort and focusing and enjoying where you are and what you're doing.
Right. I guess you have to learn what you can tolerate and what you can manage, what situations you can put yourself in, and work around that. Your sensitivity is really something you need to work around or work with.
Yeah.
Because it's not really it's not an obstacle, because in some ways it makes you very good at your job. I think an HSP in a customer service position is the best that you'd want, because they know, we know how the customer feels, and we know how the vendor feels, and we know how everybody feels, and we just want contentment or a good outcome for everybody. And if I'm nice to you, you're going to be nice to me. And I'm not going to, go out of my way to have any type of conflict.
Yeah.
And it makes you a good employee too, as long as you can manage all the other things.
I so agree 100%. And I also, it's funny, we think about customer service, we do think about that at a certain level. But at a different level, a CEO of a company to be an HSP, I mean, they're going to have to isolate a lot to kind of get themselves mentally in a good state of peace so they can think straight, because there's so much energy coming at them, right?
Right.
But on the same hand, how invaluable are they to hire people that understand what's important, to be able to communicate with them, to, if they're not happy in their jobs, look at what they are good at, spend some time. I mean, I know this takes time, but that's what builds really, really cohesive, strong teams and environments where people want to work every day.
Right.
That's where they want to work every day. I mean, that's why I wrote my book, Hang On to Your Stars, was like, caring for the people. I know this sounds so, I know, Doreen, you're just such a nice person. But no, caring for the people, they're going to care for you, and they're going to care for what they're doing. And next thing you know, it's an environment where people just want to be, they want to work at.
Right.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So where you are now, you're in a cubicle, but you still need to communicate with others in terms of groups, meetings, and all that.
Right.
And then there's the emails, right?
Right.
Now, would you say that an HSP would be a little bit more sensitive to emails than, Or do you think that we're just so understanding of people that we get them, so we just say, well, that's who they are. That seemed rude, but but then again, that's who they are, and they don't, they're not into small talk either.
Right. Yes, that's a good. I like that. That's a good question because I'm very careful with my emails. I'll have a coworker ask me to help because I just feel like there's a right way and there's a wrong way for me. But other people, it's just like, I'm busy. I need to just get this email out. Well, what kind of reception do you want it to have? There's a thoroughness about HSPs that often gets mislabeled as overthinking, even by ourselves. So it might take me an extra 3 minutes to write an email.
Or 20.
Right, or 20, and reread it, but the reception of it and the return from it is going to be worth that time. And on the other hand, too, I am sensitive to text messages and emails, and and I have to really, luckily I'm at a place where I've been for a long time, and we know each other so well. It's like family, which is good and bad also. So you know how to take that email.
Right.
You know how to take this person. You know how to take. It's just your choice whether you want to or not. If you can just let things slide off, and I don't think that's easy for HSPs to let things slide off. We take things personally.
Right.
And
yeah, we really
because
do.
because we're very careful with how we treat other people for the most part.
Right. One of the reasons, well, not even one of the reasons, the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I really struggled. I had big jobs, I had all the degrees, I really did, I worked hard, but there was something that wasn't, I kept feeling absolutely overwhelmed at the end of the day, exhausted. And what people do, right, they oversleep, they overdrink, they overeat, they just try to get that energy in check, right?
Right.
So with that said, what have been what's your experience when you're dealing with a lot of the different people at work, in terms of the environment? What are your coping mechanisms, and how do you take care of yourself?
Well, I think, at the end of the day, I have to leave it all there. Nobody in my home deserves to hear stories all day. And it's not, some days are better than others, just like everybody. Learning tools to laugh things off, to kind of create that bubble around yourself so that people can't as easily get in. Making sure that you're not going to work already tired or already stressed out, that you're not bringing anything to work with you, that it's really leaving things at the door and then just focusing on what's right in front of you. And that's definitely easier some days than others. I mean, there's days where you could be in the office by yourself with more work to do and less interaction with other people, and those are my favorite days.
Those are your favorite days?
Those are my favorite days. Keep me busy, keep me distracted, and keep me with just what's in front of me. That's where I do the best.
That's your happy place.
And I'll do whatever you want me to do. It just keep me focused, and because I don't want that. I don't want the chip. I don't want the
right.
yeah. I just want to be happy, and I want that for other people too. But I have to understand that that's not my job.
Right.
To fix everybody, because I think that's what we do too.
Yeah.
We fix other people for our own comfort. It's not really that you're helping them too. It's usually a positive thing for them, but it's really going to impact you positively also.
If they get their act together.
Right.
Right.
So now, I get a lot of texts now with a happy face, not just an okay. And it has to be an okay, not written out O-K-A-Y, because that's short to me. That's a little short to me. But sometimes you can train other people to think the way of an HSP.
That's funny. That's really interesting. So how important would you say, because again, that's really why I'm doing this podcast, is to help people gain clarity around this, to really understand, okay, so the lights are really bright when so change it. Right. Don't complain, don't be miserable. Say, would it be okay if I was at a restaurant with my husband over the weekend, and we sat down, and I must have looked very upset, because he looked at me and he goes, too loud, too bright. He didn't know which one it was,
to something.
And we went to Cask and Flagon. Now, I know it's all the football games on. It's really noisy. But we were kind of in the corner. And it just happened to be convenient. He was starving, you know. So I said, no, that's fine. I'll go in. It's no big deal. You know, I can deal with it. No big deal. We'll go to Cask and Flagon. I'm not a child. So I go in. I was like, oh, God. So I said to her, you know, could we just move just a little further in that corner? Because it was many people. And she said, sure. And we moved. It made all the difference. But it's okay to, if you understand yourself, rather than just, if I could have just sat there 10 years ago and just been distracted and a little miserable and couldn't really concentrate on the food or what I was ordering. But this turned out to be like, I ordered two things that were really good, had a really nice lunch, and ended up being able to hear each other talk. And for me, it was a win-win.
It was worth it.
It was worth it. It was worth it.
You have to judge the situations that you think is worth it.
And speak up for yourself.
Aren't. And so you said, what do you do? Well, I go to your monthly group. I put myself around more people like myself that understand me. And I stopped trying to explain myself to people that I don't think are ever going to understand fully. As close as they are to me or not, having people put themselves in my shoes, it's not worth, it's like
not
worth
it's like
the
finding
effort.
your people is so important, isn't it? Finding your people.
Right.
And thank you for mentioning that. So just to let you know, every month on the second Monday, at 4 p.m. in my studio in 141 Washington Street in Blossom Healing Studio. But you do need to reach out to me at Doreen at Blossom Healing Studio, because I'll want to give you the directions on how to get there and what time. But it's a second Monday of each month, and we get together. There's about almost a full dozen of us, but different people come in. Some days someone's busy or whatever, but we try to throw a topic on the table, one of these topics, but it ends up going into the most sometimes hysterical conversations, and some people get very spiritual because, of course, another wonderful part of being highly sensitive is being able to be highly intuitive, which is our compass. You know, do you want to speak to that for a minute?
About the compass?
Yeah, about your compass with your intuition.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things probably just recently, but I mean, I don't believe there's anything's a coincidence. So there was a reason. I mean, your office is not close by to me.
Right.
You know, but like you said, some things are worth it.
Yeah.
Meeting you has been worth it. Meeting the people in our group has been worth it.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a lot involved to getting there and being there, and I've missed.
Yeah.
And that's how you realize something's worth it, because it gives you, so many good tools. You see the tools other people use.
Right.
Right. And it's so helpful, because we really need to make this life as easy on ourselves as we can.
Right.
And we're all here to help each other home, right? So if you can be that person that might offer one little strategy, or, it's just as important to be that person there to listen as it is to talk.
Yeah, which we do a lot of there. And some people talk more than others, but then they say, "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to say so much," because as a highly sensitive, they're empathetic to the group, and so they feel bad they said too much, and we all laugh and go, "No, that was a great story there," because it's that kindness that comes out, because you don't want other people to be uncomfortable.
Right, and it's genuine. It's genuine, but you have to be careful with it.
Yeah,
because it can be misunderstood. It can be put out there, and then you want to take it back, and it's too, it's really complicated. It's really not. It's not easy.
No, it isn't.
But I will take all the positives that come with it too.
Right.
So I might not be able to tolerate small talk, but I could sit and look at clouds for 45 minutes every day, or I could, just the little things in life I also appreciate. So as much as some things can get so far under my skin, there's other things that balance that out. I can walk into a room and the fluorescent lights are too much, but I can go into a place and say, I never want to leave here. This is so comfortable.
Right. And last week, Todd was on. You had met Todd Breitenstein, and he was talking about what nature does for him. So it just calms him down to a place of he could just completely recalibrate. And you had mentioned the clouds.
Yeah.
And And that's another really important piece that people need to understand as they gain clarity, is to find those tools, whatever they are,
Right.
to help you. But as we're kind of sort of wrapping up a little bit, let me ask you, how important for you personally, has clarity meant to you? You know, understanding yourself better. And just before you answer, I find that highly sensitive people are constantly searching. They're spending their whole life, but they don't know what it is. They might be meditating, which is wonderful. They're doing different things, but they haven't done the work inside to realize, this is me. It's not just that I need this, and this, but it's the why. So what was it
Right.
for you when you gained clarity? How helpful was it for you to really get your head around, your arms around who you are, how you're wired?
It's been helpful because it explains a lot of the ways that I have always been. Why I might have always wanted to have a small circle. It wasn't really antisocial. It wasn't this. That's how I was built. And so I think it's very important, because then you realize you don't have to struggle through situations that, oh, I can deal with this. Oh, I can deal with that. And it's very scary when you come to a point where you find yourself saying, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with that. Oh, I've been dealing with this so long, or I put off dealing with this so long, now I literally can't deal with it.
Yeah.
So you have to take care of yourself. And I go to walks, and I go to the community group, and I do read a lot. I read a lot about, like I know, I read a book about an empath. Well, I figured out that wasn't really me. That HSP
Is who you are.
is who I am, with some qualities. I think some of them overlap each other. But it's important. It's important for the core people around you to understand it too.
Right.
And your kids.
And your kids. Yeah.
Because this is something I've had forever.
Right.
And one of my sons, I do feel is very similar. Very similar.
Wow. Yes.
Very, very considerate, very worrying about everybody else.
Well, you're
before
born
he
with this,
worries
so of course,
about
one of your
himself.
children, right?
Yeah.
And I think what was really amazed me was when you said to me, Doreen, I read your book, and then I've highlighted it, and I kind of keep going back to it. Right. So there's have to be some things that just constantly resonate with you.
Right.
That kind of, they kind of give you peace, right? They kind of make you say, that's me. Boy,
Right.
that's in black and white. This is it. I
Right.
get this. I understand this, and
Right.
that feels pretty terrific.
Right. Well, you're no longer an alien. You're different. You're just a smaller percentage. And you know what? The people that aren't, they miss out too.
Yeah.
So the more that we can share with each other and understand each other, I think it benefits everybody.
Well said. Well said. So we're wrapping up here. So thank you. I know you took time out of your work day. I think people can really relate to your journey and your realization, and help them learn that it's okay, whatever the tools they are. Hopefully they're helpful tools. And I know you use helpful tools, which is terrific. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So
Thank you. This is
thank you for tuning into this fascinating discussion with Stacey Peliquin. If you want to learn more about this particular broadcast, just reach out to me at doreen@blossomhealingstudio.com. And if you're ready to embrace your sensitivity, reach out to me and let's talk about you and where you're at in your journey. And until next time, remember, feeling everything is your superpower. You need to just learn how to embrace it. And then stay tuned for our next podcast. We're going to be meeting Tony LaGreca. He is a legend. He is the owner of WMEX Radio. And I just learned a couple weeks ago in chatting with him back and forth over another topic, he is an HSP. So stay tuned. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for joining us.